November 8, 1956. The Cotton Club, Harlem. Duke Ellington was playing to a packed house. Society crowd. Jazz lovers. Harlem elite. The kind of night where music and culture intersected with money and power. Anthony "Tony Boots" Marcello sat in the front row. Genovese soldier. Brooklyn enforcer. Drunk on whiskey and confidence. He'd been heckling for 20 minutes. Racial slurs. Demands for specific songs. The kind of disrespect that turned art into humiliation. Duke kept playing. Professional. Dignified. Ignoring the disruption the way performers learned to ignore things that couldn't be controlled. Tony escalated. Threw his drink on stage. Called Duke a name that silenced the entire club. Bumpy Johnson stood up from the back row. Walked toward the stage. Slowly. Deliberately. Right hand in his coat pocket. He didn't go to Tony directly. Went to Duke first. Whispered something. Duke nodded. Stepped off stage. Left through the side door. Then Bumpy turned to Tony. Pulled his hand from his pocket. Not a gun. The straight razor. The kind barbers used. The kind that required skill to use without killing. What happened in the next 5 minutes didn't just end Tony's night. It ended his face. And it sent a message about respect that resonated through organized crime for a decade. The Cotton Club in 1956 wasn't the original Cotton Club from the 20s. Different location, different ownership, but the same cultural significance. Where Harlem's artistic excellence met downtown's money. Where black performers created art for mixed audiences who didn't always respect the artists. Duke Ellington was royalty. Not street royalty. Cultural royalty. He'd been performing for 30 years. Had taken jazz from nightclubs to concert halls. Had proven that black music was American music. That artistic excellence transcended racial boundaries even when social equality didn't. He commanded respect through achievement. Through decades of work. Through music that changed culture. But respect earned through excellence was different from respect enforced through power. Anthony Marcello represented a different kind of structure. Genovese family soldier. Street enforcer. The kind of man who used intimidation and violence to maintain position. He operated in Brooklyn primarily. Came to Harlem occasionally. Usually for business with the Italian families who still controlled some Harlem operations. But Tony had a problem. He drank. When he drank, he became mean. When he became mean, he forgot where he was and who deserved respect. This had caused problems before. Warnings had been issued. By his own family. By other families. By people who understood that certain behaviors attracted attention that harmed everyone's business. Tony ignored those warnings. Thought his position protected him. Thought being Genovese meant he could act however he wanted wherever he wanted. This was the miscalculation that cost him his face. Bumpy Johnson's relationship with Duke Ellington wasn't close friendship. Was mutual respect. Both men had achieved significance in their fields. Both understood excellence. Both navigated worlds that didn't always value what they brought to them. Bumpy attended Duke's performances regularly. Not every show, but regularly enough that Duke recognized him. They'd spoken occasionally. Brief conversations. Professional courtesy. The kind of relationship built on mutual understanding rather than personal intimacy. This respect mattered. Because respect in Bumpy's framework wasn't just personal. Was structural. Duke represented something important. Not just as an individual. As a symbol of what Harlem's cultural excellence meant. As proof that black artistry commanded global respect even when local respect had to be fought for. When Tony threw his drink on Duke's stage, he wasn't just disrespecting one man. He was disrespecting what that man represented. Was demonstrating that Italian mobsters could humiliate Harlem's cultural royalty without consequence. Was testing whether Harlem would protect its own excellence or accept degradation. Bumpy understood this immediately. This wasn't about Duke personally. Was about what message got sent if Duke could be humiliated publicly in Harlem's most significant venue without response. The straight razor was deliberate choice. Not a gun. Guns killed. Death was absolute but brief. The razor did something different. Left permanent marks. Left visible reminder of consequence. Left message that everyone could see every time they looked at the person who'd crossed the line. Bumpy carried a straight razor for specific situations. Situations where the message needed to be delivered in scar tissue rather than obituaries. Where the person needed to live with their mistake rather than die from it. Where everyone who saw them afterward would know exactly what they'd done and what it had cost. This was that situation. The first 20 minutes of Duke's set went perfectly. The orchestra was tight. The crowd was engaged. The music flowed. This was Duke Ellington at his best. Complete control of tempo, dynamics, audience attention. Tony Marcello arrived during the third song. Loud entrance. Drew attention. Demanded a front row table even though the front row was fully reserved. The staff accommodated him. Not because they wanted to, because they recognized Genovese's family and knew that refusing created problems. Tony ordered whiskey, double, then another. Then another. By the fourth song he was drunk. By the fifth he was talking. By the sixth he was shouting. Play something we can dance to. Duke kept playing the arrangement. Didn't acknowledge the interruption. Hey, I'm talking to you. The crowd around Tony shifted uncomfortably. This was the Cotton Club. You didn't heckle Duke Ellington. You didn't interrupt the performance. You certainly didn't shout at the bandleader. But Tony was drunk and powerful and used to getting what he wanted. The combination made him deaf to social cues. What's wrong? Don't understand English? Want me to say it slower? Racial implication clear. Crowd went quiet. This had crossed from rude to dangerous. Duke finished the song. Announced the next one. Started playing. Professional discipline maintaining performance despite disruption. Tony stood up. Wavered slightly. Walked toward the stage. Security moved to intercept. Tony flashed something. Badge? Family connection? Whatever it was, security backed off. He reached the stage. Leaned on it. Looked up at Duke. I said play something we can dance to. You deaf or just stupid? Duke kept playing. But his jaw was tight. His expression was strained. He was maintaining control through sheer professionalism. Tony picked up his whiskey glass. Threw it on stage. Liquid splashed across Duke's piano. Glass shattered. The music stopped. The club went completely silent. Tony smiled. There. Now I got your attention. He looked around. Drunk. Proud. Enjoying the power of disruption. You people need to learn some respect. We let you have this club. We let you play your jungle music. Least you can do is play what we ask for. This was the line that couldn't be uncrossed. Jungle music. The racial epithet that reduced decades of artistic achievement to primitive stereotype. Duke stood up from the piano. Tall. Dignified. Looked at Tony with expression that mixed disappointment with resignation. He'd seen this before. Different cities. Different venues. Different drunk men thinking their money or power gave them permission to degrade. He opened his mouth to respond. Didn't get the chance. Bumpy Johnson's voice came from the back. Tony. One word. Calm. Not loud. But carrying the kind of weight that made everyone turn. Tony squinted toward the back. Couldn't quite see who'd spoken. Bumpy walked forward. Into better light. Tony's face changed. Recognition. Uncertainty. Fear trying to hide itself as bravado. Bumpy. Didn't know you were here. I'm always here when Duke plays. Bumpy kept walking. Steady pace. Not rushing. Not hesitating. He reached Duke. Stood beside the stage. Looked up at him. Go backstage. Wait there. Duke hesitated. He didn't need protection. Didn't want to be the cause of violence. Didn't want his performance to become about anything other than music. Trust me, Bumpy said quietly. Duke nodded. Walked off stage. The orchestra followed. Within seconds, the stage was empty. Just Tony and Bumpy and a silent room full of witnesses. Tony tried to recover his bravado. Look, Bumpy, I was just having some fun. No disrespect to you. This is between me and... You threw a drink on Duke Ellington's stage. You called his music jungle music. You disrespected Harlem's greatest artist in Harlem's most significant venue. Tony waved dismissively. I'm drunk. I'll apologize tomorrow. It's not that serious. It's more serious than you understand. Bumpy's hand went to his coat pocket. Tony tensed. Gun was the assumption. Gun was what mobsters pulled from pockets. What came out was different. The straight razor. Closed. Silver handle catching the light. Tony's eyes widened. Whoa, let's talk about this. I said I'll apologize. I know you will. Bumpy opened the razor. Slow. Deliberate. The blade caught the light. But apologies without consequence are just words. Tony backed up. Bumped into a table. Chairs scattered. The crowd had already moved away. Created a circle. Not running. Watching. Understanding they were witnessing justice being delivered in the only language that mattered in this context. Bumpy. I'm Genovese family. You touch me, you start a war. No war. Just a lesson. Bumpy kept walking forward. Calm. Certain. Your family will understand. Might even thank me for teaching you something they've been trying to teach for years. Tony looked around for help. Security was gone. Other patrons weren't moving. No one was calling police. No one was intervening. This was Harlem addressing its own business its own way. What do you want? Money? I can pay for the disruption. I can? I want you to understand that respect isn't optional in Harlem. That Duke Ellington isn't someone you humiliate. That jungle music built culture while you were still collecting protection money from bakeries. Tony reached for something. Belt. Gun maybe. Bumpy closed the distance. Fast. Faster than anyone expected from a man his age. The razor moved. Not wild. Not frenzied. Controlled. Precise. One slash across Tony's left cheek. Clean line from ear to jaw. Deep enough to scar permanently. Not deep enough to kill. Tony screamed. Grabbed his face. Blood ran through his fingers. Bumpy stepped back. Cleaned the razor on his handkerchief. That's for Duke. Tony was crying. Not from pain. From understanding. From recognition that this scar would mark him forever. That everyone who saw him would ask. That the story would follow him. You can leave now. Go to a hospital. Get stitches. Tell whatever story you want to tell. But everyone who knows will know the truth. They'll know you disrespected Duke Ellington in Harlem. They'll know what it cost you. Tony stumbled toward the exit. Blood still flowing. Face ruined. Career probably ruined. Reputation definitely ruined. Bumpy folded the razor. Put it back in his pocket. Turned to the crowd. Duke Ellington is a treasure. Not just for Harlem. For America. For the world. Anyone who doesn't understand that doesn't belong in this club. Anyone who disrespects him answers to me. This isn't negotiable. This isn't conditional. This is how it is. The crowd understood. Message received. Message accepted. Bumpy walked backstage. Found Duke in the dressing room. Sitting. Processing. Shaken but composed. It's handled. Duke looked at him. I know you didn't need me to do that, but I needed to do it. For different reasons than you might think. Duke waited. Bumpy sat down. Rare moment of explanation. You represent something. Not just your music. Your excellence. Your proof that we can achieve greatness in any field. When someone like Tony humiliates someone like you publicly without consequence, it tells everyone that excellence doesn't matter. That achievement doesn't command respect. That power is all that matters. And you couldn't let that message stand. Couldn't let it stand. Not here. Not in Harlem. Not when you're performing. Duke nodded slowly. What happened to him? Nothing fatal. But permanent. He'll carry the reminder. Everyone who sees him will know. He'll never disrespect another artist. And other mobsters will think twice before pulling similar stunts. Thank you. Duke's voice was quiet. Genuine. Don't thank me. Just keep playing. Keep showing the world what Harlem's excellence looks like. That's worth more than anything I did tonight. Duke returned to stage 20 minutes later. The crowd gave him a standing ovation. Not for the music. for being Duke Ellington in a moment that required his dignity. He played for another hour. Best performance of the month. The incident had been erased. The message had been sent. The evening continued as it should have continued from the beginning. Bumpy left before the encore. His work was done. The message was delivered. The consequence was permanent. Anthony "Tony Boots" Marcello received 47 stitches. The scar ran from his left ear to his jaw. Thick, visible, permanent. He told the hospital it was a car accident. Told his family it was a mugging. Told his friends it was business dispute. Everyone knew the real story within 48 hours. Harlem's grapevine was efficient. The Genovese family didn't retaliate, didn't protest, didn't demand satisfaction. They understood what Tony had done, understood why Bumpy had responded, understood that Tony had created the situation through his own stupidity. Instead, they pulled Tony from street operations, gave him desk work, kept him away from public-facing situations where his scar would generate questions and stories, essentially demoted him for embarrassing the family. Tony wore the scar for the rest of his life. Died in 1979. Heart attack. Age 61. Even his obituary mentioned the scar. Everyone who knew him knew the story. Knew he'd disrespected Duke Ellington. Knew what it had cost. Duke Ellington never spoke publicly about the incident. Continued performing at the Cotton Club regularly. Never had another disruption. Never faced another heckler. The message had been so thoroughly delivered that even drunk patrons understood the boundaries. Years later, a journalist asked Duke about difficult performances, about dealing with racist audiences, about moments where dignity was tested. Duke's answer was diplomatic. You encounter ignorance sometimes, but Harlem has ways of educating people. That was as close as he came to acknowledging what happened that night. Bumpy's straight razor became legendary, not just for this incident, for others, for the message it sent about consequences and permanence and visible reminders, for the understanding that some lessons needed to be written in scar tissue. Other Italian mobsters learned, adjusted their behavior in Harlem venues, showed respect to performers, understood that cultural excellence commanded protection even when social equality lagged behind. The Cotton Club specifically became known as untouchable territory. What happened there reflected on Harlem's dignity. The incident changed something subtle but significant. Harlem's cultural institutions gained protection that extended beyond business arrangements. Artists gained status that commanded respect from people who didn't respect much else. Excellence became currency that even criminals had to honor. This didn't solve racism, didn't end discrimination, didn't create equality, but it created boundaries, created understanding that certain things carried consequence, created fear where respect didn't naturally exist. Tony Marcello's face became a teaching tool. Mobsters would point to his scar, tell the story, explain why you didn't disrespect Harlem's cultural icons. The lesson was visceral, visible, impossible to ignore. When Bumpy died in 1968, Duke attended the funeral, sat quietly in the back, didn't speak, didn't make himself visible, just paid respects. Afterward, he told someone that Bumpy had understood something important, that protecting culture was as important as protecting territory, that artists deserved the same security as operations. The straight razor itself, kept by Bumpy until his death. After that, its location became unclear. Some said his family kept it. Some said it was given to someone significant. Some said it disappeared. What mattered wasn't the object, was what it represented. The willingness to deliver permanent consequences. The understanding that some disrespect couldn't be tolerated. The commitment to protecting excellence even when violence was required. Tony Marcello lived 46 more years after that night. Every day he saw the scar. Every day he remembered. Every day he understood the cost of humiliating Duke Ellington. That was the lesson. That was the message. That was the consequence that resonated beyond just him. Some lessons are taught through words. Some through economic pressure. Some through social exclusion. some through permanent physical reminders that everyone can see. Tony Marcello's face taught for decades. The scar was curriculum. The story was education. The permanent marking was demonstration that certain lines, once crossed, carried consequences that couldn't be undone. Duke Ellington died in 1974. Legendary status secured. Legacy permanent. Cultural impact immeasurable. When people eulogized him, they mentioned his music, his innovations, his contributions to American culture. They didn't mention that November night in 1956. Didn't mention Bumpy Johnson or Tony Marcello or straight razors or scars. But people who knew that Duke's dignity had been protected, knew that Harlem's excellence had been defended, knew that consequences had been delivered. That's how power worked in systems where legal frameworks didn't protect cultural value, where artists needed different kinds of security, where excellence required enforcement. One mobster tried to humiliate Duke Ellington. Bumpy Johnson showed him the razor. The scar lasted a lifetime. The message lasted longer.